for you, Lori? Did it come up?
Yep, yes, it does. Yep, thank you.
Yep.
And if you want to start, Marie, I'm just waiting for my page to reload to make sure the video is working.
Okay.
Now that my internet's going, so.
Hi, how are you doing?
Doing good.
Did it work for you?
It's still loading, but all of the other
We're
things
up.
say that we're
Okay.
okay, so I
We'll
think
call
we're
this
okay
to
to at least
order
get
then.
started.
All right, thank you, Tasia. We're gonna call this to order tonight at 6:33 by my clock. So if I could, please, Catherine, would you please lead the pledge
Sure.
of allegiance for us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks for joining us this evening. If Tasia, are you ready to take a roll call?
Yep. Bruce Blargen.
Here.
Katie Thermos.
Here.
Marie Colbeth.
Here.
Bob Gunther. Patty Jo Forsberg. Catherine Cranston.
Here.
Lori Blargen.
Here. Thank you very much. Let's read the district mission together, please. Together we engage, educate, and empower all learners, bridging their passions to pathways to create successful futures and positively contribute to our local and global communities. And our core values together, we believe each and every person is capable of success. Each and every person is accepted and valued. We believe in empowering all learners. We believe change is our opportunity for growth. We believe involved communities foster strong schools. We believe lifelong learning is essential for personal growth. We believe in cultivating leaders. Thank you, everyone. We're hoping as we keep reading those together, it kind of makes it come more naturally. Protocol reminders, everyone on the board here, please. And then if I could, please, I'm asking you to read fast. No, I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda. Thank you, Catherine.
I'll second.
Thank you, Lori. Any changes or questions on it? If not, everyone in favor of approving the agenda as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you very much. So we'll move right into 2 reports. We've got the superintendent starting it off as always.
And,
Dr. Basic,
well,
welcome.
usually we have student reps, but we missed them on the agenda, so they're gonna come in under mine.
Okay,
So,
perfect. So,
It's all yours.
yeah.
Yeah, we can pull it up here.
Thanks for coming tonight, you two. That one doesn't always work as a touch screen for some reason. Pretty.
Wow, that's quite lovely.
Yes, it is.
Okay. So I'm Abby Scramstead, and normally Katie Schrader would be with me, but she was unable to be here today. So this is Hannah Thorson. She'll be filling in. Alright, so our school's updates for the month. The elementary school has parent-teacher conferences this Tuesday and Thursday evenings of this week. They have Swap a Coat. It's a coat drive that's going to be going on during conferences. They'll also be having a bake sale put on by their student council during the conferences to raise money for the Somerset Food Pantry. At the middle school, the 7th grade students participated in the annual Youth Frontiers retreat. Darcy, Roshan, and Maya, the therapy dog, spoke to the 7th grade students in preparation for their argumentative writing project. Up at the high school, the transitioning well into our new schedule and wrapping up fall sports, we had a wonderful speaker, Tasha Shu, a quadriplegic, who shared her message of hope for those struggling with depression. Okay, so sports, middle school is finishing up their fall seasons and looking forward for the start of winter athletics. The 5th and 6th grade girls
had the opportunity to participate in the high school's Dig Pink / Youth Night, which recognizes October's Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and they were able to warm up with the varsity athletes behind the court during that time.
At the high school, volleyball had 2 wins against New Richmond and Boyceville. Our C team, JV, and JV2 all ended their seasons last week, and varsity begins their playoffs this week. For golf, we sent Haley Myers off to the state golf tournament last week, and she placed 4th.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Our cheer team is coming off a great fall football season, and they're getting ready for their winter season. The dance team just learned our first competition routine and is looking forward to the upcoming winter competition season.
And football finished up their season last Friday with a loss to Baldwin. And cross country held a home conference meet last week where the girls took 5th overall and the boys took 7th. They're very excited to be attending sectionals at St. Croix Central later this week. Boys soccer finished the regular season with a record of 11-5-3, and they're in the 3rd seed for playoffs this year, and their first playoff game will be at home against Cumberland on Thursday.
For Homecoming 2019 this year, we had the Stuff the Bus fundraiser where we brought in many donations for our Somerset Food Pantry, which includes both money and food items. And our football team sadly took a tough loss against New Richmond this year. We did have a great turnout for our student council-led tailgate party the Thursday of Homecoming, where we received many generous donations from our community and local businesses supporting the tailgate party and our all of Homecoming festivities. We had overall success and a lot of community involvement this year in our parade and in our tailgate party and the football game. At the football game, we crowned our Homecoming King and Queen, Tyler Hansbarger and Allison Strumke.
We wanted to include a special feature this month in our presentation, so we will be talking about the new Construction Academy at SHS. And what this is a 10-mod class out of the 20-mod day where students are offered an alternative learning environment where they can earn different credits including English, social studies, technical education, business ed, and math. The teachers for this include Mr. Herring, Ms. Sutton, Mr. Lindenberg, Mr. Leonard, Mr. Potter, and Mr. Eichton. 14 students are enrolled this year, including 1 sophomore and 13 upperclassmen. And the students are self-selected for this class, and all the classwork is tailored to them, so they are earning other credits that have been adapted to their specific projects that they choose to do.
All of the students have their own businesses and products that they make or that they help with. Some examples would be shelves, custom signs, picnic tables, cutting boards, coasters, and many more. They're working on a website right now to sell their products. So far they've been selling to their family and through social media. They made the benches for the homecoming court to ride on in the parade, and they're currently working on a cabin behind SHS. They have the chance to go out onto job sites during this class and perform real-world practical tasks such as pouring concrete.
I can add to that, the cornhole things right there are $150 each, but they will custom make them for you. So you can have whatever you want on. So like I had a gopher on one end and a Wisconsin badger on the other. So you can actually custom order, they'll do them.
What's the cabin? What's the deal with the cabin? What kind of cabin? Does anybody know?
If you take the back driveway out behind the high school, I think you'll see it.
But what are they planning on doing?
It's a small, I don't know what they're planning to do, but it's a great project.
For
yeah,
sale,
no.
I'm sure.
Either
I'm
someone
sure
has,
an auction off.
I was wondering a nice house or something.
No, it's bigger than an ice house.
Okay.
This is,
Pretty good size.
so this is the 14 students that did that, there it
Yes.
is? Okay.
Yeah, they're working on their individual projects as well as like a big group one too.
Okay.
How big is the cabin?
I would say it's
It's kind of like a tiny
It's like-
house.
like 16 by 20.
Yeah, it's bigger than a
It's
12
like
by
pushing
12.
the size of easily transported. But it's, looks good. It's nice and straight.
Have you checked?
Yes, I have.
Okay, and finishing up with arts, the band and choir have been working really hard to fundraise for their upcoming Disney trip, which will be over Thanksgiving break. So far, 58 students are going to participate in 2 workshops there with professional performers, and they will then get to perform at the Disney park. Band and choir have a concert coming up on December 9th in the high school NPR, and drama is working on their fall musical production of Beauty and the Beast with they're hosting a tea party event on November 3rd, so students and different community members will be able to talk with the cast and meet the characters. Thank you for your time.
Great, I like, so is this the way that things come forward when you do, and that's all PowerPoint, or is that
No,
something
this
a little
is
more
Prezi.
involved?
This is different.
Yeah, it's kind of like PowerPoint, but it's a different program.
Oh,
It's
okay.
the next generation.
I wondered about that, that's pretty neat how that all works. And that, you guys are learning that too in a class?
I mean, yeah, this is what we're working on.
Thank you both very much, and thanks for Anna for coming in this evening and for Katie. All right, any questions
You guys
for
can
them?
stick around if you want, you don't have to.
Do we have any questions for our student reps, guys?
Nope.
Wonderful
Thank
job. You covered it all. And yes, like Dr. Busick said, if you have things you need to take care of, you're welcome to stay as long as you like, but don't feel bad about leaving. We understand. So then now we're back at you, Dr. Busick.
Okay, Dave, do you wanna talk about, you wanna do your defeasance?
Yeah, we can talk about.
Sounds exciting.
So there's an agenda item under advanced services and operations to set the Fund 39 levy, which is where we could increase that levy amount if we chose, as we did last year, for the purpose of levying in advance for paying down debt service in the future. So we've lucked out since we projected what the cost of the referendum would be as far as the mill rate calculation goes. So when we first projected, it was 62 cents, I think, increase. When we got to selling the bonds, the facilities portion was raised because of market conditions and the ability to sell it under what was expected. And now, mainly because of our increase in property values, instead of seeing a 33-cent increase, we're looking at actually a decrease. And so if we wanted to keep the mill rate the same this year as it was last year, we could increase our Fund 39 levy to do so, and it would be a flat mill rate. Now, all that being said, that's the mill rate, and it's not the dollar amount for the levy. So the actual levy is still going up. It's just a calculation where district-wide, our property values have gone up a little over 11%. And so, whether that's new construction or reassessment for a municipality, property values are going up, and so the calculation is dividing the total levy by the total equalized property value to get the mill rate. So, if you want to see more information and look at some scenarios, we can do that. If you're interested in considering that, Mark asked me to bring it up as something to think about, but if we just levy for what is required to pay next year, our mill rate is going down, and our total levy is still going up from last year, as I said.
So tonight you're giving us that for information to consider, for people to
Well, it's for the
consider.
levy tonight. We're setting the levy tonight, so if it is something of interest, you can see graphically the total dollar amounts involved and what have you, but I think Mark wanted to see if there was interest in looking at it first, and if so, then we can, like I said, I have some charts and some scenarios and so forth, we can see it, see the effects, see some history, or we don't have to proceed in that discussion, and then we don't have to do anything with that.
What's the benefit of raising the mill rate? I remember we were talking about last year, but what was the benefit?
So we levy in advance, and then we can pay down debt sooner. That's one thing. Another thing is that it gives us flexibility in the future as well. So we defeased last year to keep the mill rate flat because we're looking at what are the effects going to be when we go to a referendum, was the main reason. Since it was just last year, we can use that money right now to decrease what we're paying initially on this first debt payment, in addition to the bid premium that we got when we sold it.
On the one for 2020 you're talking about.
Yeah, that's right. So the whole point is either give the district flexibility going forward financially, especially if there's plans to do additional referenda in the future. And then if not, then at the least, you still get to pay it out sooner. So you save some interest.
So the upside is, would it save taxpayers dollars in the long run?
Because it would save on interest. It should, it could.
Yeah, all of our debt is callable after a certain period of time, so we can pay in advance.
And the lower that debt is, not only does it save taxpayers, but if we ever want to look at upgrading our fields and the auditorium and all that, we would have less debt when
Right,
we
it
do
gives-
that.
So it gives you flexibility to structure, and so that PMA took advantage of that when they sold our bonds in July, where our goal was to keep it steady over time. The reason that it's not being steady is because their assumptions were low for equalized value increase. So I think 5% for this year and then 2% every year after it. And so at the moment that looks low. It is low for right now.
So your recommendation is exactly what?
It depends on your appetite. It gives us flexibility. You know, maybe Mark wants to jump in with if he has ideas or
Well,
visions
you know,
for the future.
I put the note out that, if we're gonna look at something in the next few years, upgrading, the second portion that we had to drop, this is definitely a plus. It gives us some room. And we did well with the, how we had it structured before. Obviously it showed us no impact and we got lucky, but this, hedges our bets a little bit.
So flexibility, and it saves taxpayers money in the long run.
Right, but it is a calculation. The mill rate is a calculation. Property values are going up. The actual amount, the total amount we're levying is going up. Property values are going up more.
But that's out of our control.
Right, it's just saying it, what we look at district-wide for equalized property value, and that's what the mill rate is based on, it's everything based on. That's district-wide average for all equalized value for the district, but an individual homeowner, it's almost impossible to predict what would happen.
Do you have a dollar amount?
Yeah.
That goes along with that?
This was before we talked about raising everything 62 cents. And then you said we were gonna clear out and they're only gonna be 33 cents, is that what it was?
Right, so
And then now what would it go back up to the 62 or?
So the history was it started at 62, when we sold it, it went down to 33. And now not only has it gone down to 0, but it's gone down another 38.
So we're like down
So they're paying us?
100, we're down like $1.
No, I totally missed.
We're over $1 now
This is the time to do that.
from last year.
From the initial projection, right, where
Initial
where
projection.
PMA was saying,
So we'll be down 33 cents from last year.
they were at 38.
38.
They were very conservative on what they thought they could sell it at,
Mhm.
right? And then the whole scenario where they put the amortization schedule was based on equalized values that were much lower. So I put the little gray numbers on there just so you can reference. It's not any order or anything, but if you want to say, we're talking about number 7 or number 2 or what have you. And so the green is, that's what we need to levy in order to make the payments that are due in 2020. That's what we need to levy. The green total required number 1. If we wanted to change to match last year's mill rate, and you can see the historical mill rates under number 3, then we would go to number 4 and increase the Fund 39 portion. And you see the dollar amount and the mill rate amount under number 5. And to the right, you can see the effects by municipality with total dollar amount. You can see the amount we defeased last year in the middle of the page. And you you see, I put in property values as well, equalized property values for property holders.
Any thoughts?
Is there anywhere on this document that shows which municipality had an increase in their equalized value?
I think they all did a little
Except
bit.
town of Somerset, I believe, did revaluation.
I could pull that up if you'd like.
Yeah.
Total
Yeah.
composite,
Yeah.
we were a little over 11% as a district.
Right. The township or the village? I thought the village had a big
No,
increase.
the town did.
The township.
The town had appraisals done,
I thought the village,
reappraisals of their
I
properties.
thought the village did too, because they had to, I think we're all required to, St. Joe has to too, every so many years, because you have to be within 10% of,
Well, I know the village did it a couple years ago,
yeah.
but I recall seeing some complaints from people from the town of Somerset on social media.
Oh,
St. Joe was as well.
Was the, okay, was it the town of Somerset?
I don't know if
Well, ours was done last year, for sure.
I remember when we were knocking on doors,
Oh, yes,
people
yes.
in the village.
Wow. No, but it's the township that did the. So,
So I wish it would have been nice to have had this before now. But one of my concerns is that, I understand that on one hand, it's being fiscally responsible because you're paying down debt sooner. I get that. But on the other hand, I'm concerned about the impact on property owners, and with the value of their property going up, it ends up being an increase.
Yeah, it does.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, cause now we're paying 991.
And I'm not sure if we would be better off, showing our taxpayers the gains that we made in selling those bonds at such a good price.
You want to be able to position yourself in it, and either way, I think you're gonna look good, as far as what you're saying, Lori.
Oh.
And the other side, if we look long-term, but it's really a coin flipping in the air. That's why, I'm not jumping up and down saying, here's what we should do, because it's what you feel comfortable with showing.
And I have another question. In the past, what we could levy in the future was based on what we had levied the previous year. So if we don't do this, is it going to end up hurting us as far as what we can levy
Oh, I see.
next?
So this is only in reference to referendum debt, Fund 39. So all this is already approved. We could levy for the entire amount that's due over the next, 30 years, next year.
Okay,
There's no limit because it's already approved. Typically, districts only levy for the debt service that's due in the next calendar year.
okay.
That's what,
So you're referencing general operations with the revenue limit formula, and so this is separate from that.
Okay,
Okay.
all right, good.
What if we went somewhere in the middle? Rather than, because we know the value of the homes has gone up, and we know we got a much more favorable cost of borrowing the dollars, so could we go somewhere in the middle? I know that's pain in the rear, because you didn't.
It's really, if
You can do any amount.
there's a plan, there hasn't been a lot of discussion about additional referenda or anything along those lines. If there had been, then we probably would have a better feel for what to do at this point. So, you're right, you're talking about the municipalities and the property increases, equalized values. It looks like town of Somerset and town of St. Joe had the biggest increases. The village had the smallest. But it really is it based on new construction mainly? In which case, that's spreading the burden around, or is it just because you were assessed? So if your assessment went up proportional to what we're increasing the mill rate, the levy by, then you pay more.
In St. Joe, we all went up a little bit. Yes, the new construction
Town of Somerset
raises
did
it too.
And
Yeah.
they're the vast majority of our,
Voters.
Who's that?
The town of Somerset is the vast majority of our voters.
Yeah.
The one thing, the landscape around here is
50%.
gonna change so much in the next 2 years that,
Yes, it
this
could.
isn't we don't have to act on this year. And again, things are gonna change drastically with, you've got 120 lots or 100 lots coming in, and, this whole piece valuation is gonna change. A lot of times I like to stack the deck for a future referendum, but we haven't had enough conversations on that to really weigh in on this piece here.
I would be in favor of some. I do think it's fiscally responsible, but I keep in mind what Lori said too. People are already seeing an increase, so if we could go somewhere in the middle, even if it's half of that, 190,000 defeasance instead. How would that? We can move through the rest of the items in the agenda if you want to have time to.
well,
Just to see what that might look like.
I don't mind leaving it as is.
I will make a motion that we.
Well, we're not to
Okay.
that point yet.
We're not.
That's
We have
part
it
of
on the next
It's in the
page.
next.
Yeah, it's on
Okay.
that services.
So this is just for information here to read into that.
Can we get a feel for
To
it so
think-
that Dave
think
doesn't
about it
have to
for
do
a half
that?
hour.
Yeah,
Before we vote on it.
I don't know, Dave, is there any other information you want to dig up, because this won't come up for a while yet? Is there anything,
Is this something you wanna pursue, Mark, or no? If we looked at like 973 from 1718, that's about $185,000,
Okay,
186. But, it's, like Mark said, there's gonna be likely going to be a lot of change and a lot of opportunity in succeeding years to do similar type things. It's not something that has to be done. It was,
yeah,
Mark and I were chatting about, wow, look at, there's
Yeah.
been a lot of change since last year at this time.
I'm just-
Is it something to consider at this point, or is it just something to
put it on the
keep an
table
eye
for
on
next
the
year,
future?
yeah,
and, realize the benefit of what we've done.
yeah.
I mean, we can
That
get,
would be my druthers.
yeah, we're seeing, hey, we told people this is gonna go up a lot, and if it doesn't change at all, and we wanna go for a referendum in a couple of years, and we're saying, well, it could go up, otherwise it could stay the same, I don't know, it kinda looks good, I don't see a point to really raise it. I do, I get it, but, if we wanna do more of this, I can see it. We thought it was gonna go up and nothing changed.
But the year when the assessments have come through for the vast majority of the people live
Well,
in,
$500 a month. Mine.
yeah, that's it, so.
a lot of money. So we'll think on it for a few more minutes during the
Wait till it
meeting
gets
and
further.
come back to it. I can see doing some defeasance. I can see a benefit to that. I don't foresee taxes going down as we get closer to election. Thank you, Dave, very much for putting that together.
Thanks.
And
Okay.
thanks for the very easy way of comparing it to 1718's
Yeah.
973 levy there. What
Yeah,
else?
I'll keep going. I've been we've lined up all the meetings with the townships and the village and what have you, just to talk about construction update and this bridging summer to set 2.0 and looking for someone to volunteer for those from each, one elected official from each board. So that's something that as a group here, I hope someone volunteer to be part of that. And that'll probably involve about maybe 4 to 5 meetings over the next 6 months at the most. We started our building compensation meetings today. We were over at the middle school for about 45 minutes. Jody and I were, and walked through a lot of the information I gave you in the packet last time. And it actually went very well. A lot of good questions. We encourage people to, if they have any individual specific questions, to get to Jody and I and that, but we hung around afterwards and people had a few questions, but they were able to find their answers in there, so we walked through the schedules and just the foundation and how it was created and what have you, and provided, I think, to a lot of people a lot of clarity, just to be able to bounce some things off of us and what have you. So tomorrow I think we have the high school, and the next Monday we have the elementary school. November 1st, we have a walkthrough for contractors over at the elementary school for the secure entryways. We're hopefully gonna get that project done over the Christmas vacation. Our first project oversight committee meeting will be will be before the November 4th work session here, and both Bruce and Bob are serving on that committee with George, Dave, myself. I think that's all the district reps, but Mark and Johnson will be there, and Wold, and that's where we'll start talking about kind of the 50,000 foot view of how this thing is gonna come down, and just some of the upcoming decisions that are gonna have to be made, so we can kind of get a calendar and get just a little tighter on how things are gonna progress. That's the purpose of those POC meetings, is for Bruce and Bob to bring things, if there's issues that, dollar amounts that are in the required range, to come back to the board. And typically what we'll do, I don't know if we'll have one at this November meeting, but probably, I think once we get more into the bidding process, what have you, Mark and Johnson and Wold will come every month, probably give a little update, but right now, they're still in the design development phase, what have you. They're preparing, they'll get done with design development probably in November, December, and the bid target is January. So that'll be kind of crunch time there. We'll know exactly what we're dealing with. Let's see, village, continue.
But it would be nice to see some of their design.
Yeah, whenever they get them, when they have something to show, we'll bring that up, but I don't think they'll have anything by the November 4th meeting. I'm not sure. And if they do have something, later in the month, if we give them a few minutes at a regular meeting, because we want to try and keep it at work sessions. So, but as soon as they finish this next section, the design development, there'll be a lot to see, because this is where they're working with the user groups and the buildings, all the teachers, and where's this cabinet gonna go, and where's that doorway gonna go, and all this. So you get right down to the nitty gritty, because from design development, that's what the bid documents are taken off of, because when they bid it, everything has to be down there. We miss, we lose, so. Last thing in here is the discussion about employee council. How do you want to proceed with that? And I thrown out a couple ideas. The document, the several page document, is what I thought I heard from the board, and also from what I heard from, I probably put it out to about a dozen people, and probably got responses from about 5 or 6. So.
I thought this was on the agenda somewhere, is it not?
It is, it's under my report.
Because I think there are just some,
What did you think was on the agenda?
the employee council.
Yeah, under
were they-
these.
It was
I
under my
guess I was
report.
thinking handbook recommendations, but,
No, handbook is
um,
separate.
well, yes and no in my head. But if the message that you're trying to send is, hey, we're going to disband this group that has been working on something for a couple of years without giving them even a heads up that we're disbanding them and we don't want to hear from them anymore, I'm sure that that is the message that they would receive going forward with this. I mean, it's not as if the board was kept in the dark about anything that was happening. I cannot help how Mark presents it to the board. If it comes in as his verbal report about what has happened with the employee council, I can't do anything about that. What I can tell you is that these have been very valuable meetings and nothing untoward has happened.
Nothing
They have
happened?
Untoward, I don't quite understand why talking about the policies that the board is considering and employee handbooks needs to be viewed so contentiously. I mean, we've had discussions, all that, it was left where Mark had asked the employees to go back and find out what their wish list would be of policy changes, and they came back and gave it, presented it, Mark told the board. And the next step that was to happen with the employee council was that we didn't have any language. There was no language to look at when you're talking about these things. So give us some language, and we were waiting to get language and to have another meeting set. No other meeting has been set. And now we have recommendations coming from administration with mostly saying no to any of the handbook recommendations and without any true input from these employees who were on the council. I got the memo that said, you've talked to people who haven't come, but I didn't see anything that said you talked to the current group.
Those were ones that those were ones that
Gave
didn't
them
respond.
any heads up that this was coming to the board.
Those were the ones that didn't respond. I sent an email out a week or so ago, just asking, give me your inputs. We're talking about restructuring the employee council because we had so many people drop out. I personally went and spoke to those people. And the others, I put a note out, said one out of.
I did not get that note. I would have liked to have seen that note as another member of the employee council. And if you want to replace this other group with the current employee council, I mean, when I read the structure of that other group, it read like our PLC teams, only with an expanded membership of support staff and supervisory support staff. The employee council, the purpose was, and I have a copy of the email that went to the board and all staff. It was to act as a sounding board and advisory group to both the board and Mark on a variety of issues. There is no big need to change. Yes, you could do more recruiting. There needs to be better follow-up on agenda items, and we can certainly get all the minutes. There's been nothing not transparent about this group at all. I'm sure, Tasia, do you have the minutes stored in one place?
I think you were the one taking the minutes, so I don't know that I got electronic copies.
Well, but you were for a while. I mean, I think we've met maybe 10 times, and during part of these, in 2 years. And that I can't control, is a disappointment to me, but I don't control that. It has to come by this board's actually backing up the committee, by the way, and saying, you know, you need to take this seriously and be committed to it. So now what we're doing instead is saying, okay, we're gonna recommend no to the board on pretty much anything you listed, even though we didn't even provide them an opportunity to further narrow them down or really talk about it. And by the way, we're not gonna meet for the rest of the year, even though in the face of that staff survey result, where communication was the second largest topic. And that is, I just cannot believe that this is what this board wants to do. It can't be, because this, I would be hard pressed to think of a better way to further destroy morale than by going about it the way what is happening right now. It's just, we're not even going to talk to people for a year. The board hasn't even talked about the survey results. So, if anybody has any questions for me about the things that have occurred in these meetings, I would be happy to answer them too.
I have a couple. I reached out to 3 board members from the county board to ask if they have, any information to share with me on the employee council, and I did not get a response from them, so I will follow up on that. Because from my vantage point, the employee council accomplished some things effectively and other things less effectively. So I don't see it as a reason to get rid of it, but to revisit why it was initially set up is a really good idea. And to revisit how it is structured and how we would get that information or could get that information, I think would be very beneficial. I don't know if on the employee council at the county, are there board members? I don't think there are.
There was at the beginning, which is
So
what
theirs
I
has
told
changed
you.
too. So,
Only because things got better.
so I would think I could get some of that information and reaching out for it. So I'm
And
hopeful that
because
we
as a
can.
group, there was the process developed to initiate some of these changes.
So I think that would be beneficial here too, a
Yes.
process of some sort. I think that from my vantage point, and I don't know how the rest of you felt, if it was to be truly a reflection of the employees, it seemed very much dominated by a particular group. Now, that's only my perception.
Well, that's your perception. I will happily send you the minutes from what we have, and you can take a look at who was at which meeting, right? It's,
That would be
This
really
is
helpful, because we didn't
ridiculous.
get a lot of feedback on what, who was part of it, who was able to
you
voice
never asked
concerns.
for it.
Oh, I think we did.
And it was, no, you did not.
So
You
it,
did not.
that would be my question.
It's a
my concern.
recommendation.
Yeah, right.
Whatever you wanna do, I'll pursue it. Again, it started out as a discussion group 2 years ago.
So there's a survey that was done of all staff, and there are some results out there for this? Is that what I understood you to say?
We did the school perception survey
Just a school perception
last
survey.
year.
And we were gonna redo it again, but not at the same time this year, so.
No, at the
Yeah,
same
at the
time,
same time.
Okay,
at the same time, I want consistency.
so is that something we will be able to see the results on? Is it something
Well,
we
you
were
had the
not going to
results
see
of
the
last year.
results?
We had the presentation, and then we had it on an
the results of
agenda.
the survey last year. We were going to get a work session and talk about the results of those. We haven't done that yet. We've done I think we talked about the survey at employee council. All the recommendations that are on here are things that came from the employee council. What they wanted, they were right out of the minutes. Lori took the minutes that day. We addressed everything in here with our recommendations. That's all it is. It's our recommendations as to for what they asked us for.
But they were never told that you were going to bring them to the board.
Who was never told?
And they never had, they were also supposed to get, we were supposed to get some language, because in the midst of all of this, we were talking about all the changes to the employee handbook. And that was part of the discussion. And I know I'm not speaking a foreign language, but you can't, come to an agreement as a group on anything unless you see the language first. And we didn't have any language. There was never any language, and, the last council meeting,
I'm a little
Was
confused. What kind of
suddenly-
language did they wanna see?
for the handbook, for the different provisions, so that they could take it back to people and talk about it.
Okay, I didn't know that this was a negotiation type group.
It's not a
Well,
no,
You're treating
you are
it like,
trying to make,
no, wait, you're treating it like it is. We gathered input. We asked them, what changes do you want in your sections? We asked them to go back. They gave us the information. We looked through it and made our recommendation to you, to the board, saying, here's what we think. So are you saying that we should go back to the employee council and negotiate these items,
That's
or?
how it
I'm not
sounds to me
talking
too.
about negotiation.
But that is.
Well,
how
I'm not getting it. I'm
sounds.
missing something here.
As you say that we need to go back for feedback, that to me is reading like the negotiations used to.
Okay,
And so when
then
you
we should
say,
not have any of their
from
input.
what you were saying here, if if I understood you correctly, you said they were set up as an advisory,
There's a lot of good input in this from what
Yes.
they asked.
and that we.
And were they aware that
Is this
this was
the
on the
only
agenda for
way?
today?
I don't know that this is the only way people, board members, get feedback from teachers either. As a matter of fact, I know it's not, because the feedback I got with regards to the employee council was not, or isn't saying that that's the best way to handle it. So, or how it has been handled. was the
Well,
best way.
because it hasn't
So-
been being handled.
Well, there's different perspectives on it, Katie. So I think for us to hear about those
Yeah.
different perspectives, we do need to revisit.
Well, then somebody should notify them that they've been disbanded and that their input is not valued anymore.
But I don't think
It
that's
hasn't
the
been
case.
disbanded. You asked me for a recommendation on how
You
we want to
already
move
have.
forward. I provided you a recommendation, actually 2 of them.
Were they
Tell me
aware
what
that
you
it
want
was
me-
coming
tell
here
me-
tonight?
Tell me what you want to do.
Were they
Well,
aware?
I can honestly say that many in a row of the, once around the table, I brought it forward, it's been probably a year, that I asked for us to relook at the employee council, because I thought it needed to be restructured. So then I don't think it's a surprise. And we did ask him to come up with some scenarios. If you feel like the employee council, it feels like they're not being heard at this point, maybe then we need to make that more clear. That we're asking, yes, we're not gonna disband the one that's there, because in our opinions, and in many opinions, it has not been that effective. We're looking at restructuring it so that it is more of a voice across the board, not just certain people, and not just certain groups. We want it to be
And no
more-
board member,
And no board members.
right.
And it should be run by
So-
them, not Mark and not us.
So let's just be clear. Also, the recommendation was that the administrators pick who's going to be on the council. And one of the best ways to freeze out any type of open dialogue is to continue a top-down approach to everything that you do. And this is so ingrained here, it's amazing to me.
Where did it say in the recommendation that administrators were going to?
It does.
It
Yeah,
does.
it does.
It says that anyone can apply, and
That's how it works in my school, we
And
apply.
we let the building administrators look at who applies. We want people that are at the top of their game or effective in their position, that'll contribute to the mission and the strategic plan.
It's
That
interesting.
is typical, that's how it works. in
Well,
my
and it's
district.
interesting that you view it as that's not going to be as effective.
Correct, because I think you need, in order to get a good overwhelming feeling of accomplishment, you need the naysayers in the room too. You need them all in the room so that they're part of the solution. It's just,
So it doesn't
Works
work
that way.
like a representative speaking for them? So whomever is, applies for it and is willing to put the time in,
yeah,
wouldn't
that's
they
what we
be,
do.
but wouldn't they be the one that the naysayers or whomever, that was the example you gave, would talk to them? So that they're heard?
What do you mean?
Well, if there are people that have the time and actually apply to be in that position, and they put their hat in the ring, and they are selected, wouldn't whoever was not selected then work through them to be heard?
It depends.
I guess that's
What
how
you're
I
doing is
would see
limiting it, and that was not, the idea was not to limit it.
I want to limit it to people who can afford the time.
that.
Because
I know
we
willing
have-
to.
You know what, I'm just gonna put it right out here. We got people that aren't performing up to expectations. And they've got all this time to go out and do other things, but what matters in their classroom. I could care less if the whole thing's naysayers, but I want high-performing naysayers.
Right, there's nothing wrong with that.
Well,
So I see it
Not
as
the current
something where
makeup.
this is still something that's a work in progress. We do need to revisit it. We want there to be representation that actually has the time to listen to the different voices. And I, from my perspective, did not see that as how the council was playing out. We weren't getting the notes as, you actually saw it and you heard it, whereas I did not as a board member. So it felt like it was always a representation of how you heard it.
When you only meet 3 times a year,
Right, but it was advisory.
you're not missing anything.
But it was advisory too, so let's remember that in establishing this. It was not to set up, okay, this is how we wanna see it go. It was to give thoughts on how it could go.
Yep, and feedback, yep,
Katie, do you agree that it should be run by them?
yes, absolutely.
Because that's the sticker for me. I don't think, I just think that they should be running it and one of them should come, and not an administrator.
But I also
They should come
think
and report to us.
The
It
board
shouldn't go
should
through
be
us.
in there to hear the conversations.
I disagree with that one. We're gonna agree to
Well-
disagree on that.
I know. But that's fine.
But that's okay to
I-
disagree, but the rest of it, you agree that they should be running it and it should be their voice. And it should be wide representation and,
Yeah, all of it was there.
Administrators choosing.
That's how it all started.
but the administrators are not choosing who applies.
But they're choosing, I mean, if
But
you
that's the
looked
way,
at
that's the
Mark's,
way it
um,
goes.
recommendation, there were 2 teachers from each building. One had to be 5 years or less.
Yeah.
One had to be 5 years or more.
Mhm.
And,
I think that's good.
yeah,
Right.
that's fine.
The administrators are not choosing who applies.
No, but they're choosing who will be on the council.
Well, somebody has to. And that's how it works in other districts, I can tell you.
I think it would be
What
beneficial
if
to
you
try
just have
that.
all of them, if they apply, they're on? And then if they can't make a meeting and somebody else can, then they're covered.
I'm not in favor of that. Because
Just
the loudest
Tell me
wheel
what you want,
starts to.
tell me what you wanna do, you know?
I want it to be
Again,
more uniform and.
I selected the last group,
Yeah.
just out of people that applied, and we're frankly looking for warm bodies. Now you want more structure to it, and that's what I gave you.
And I
If you
like,
don't like a structure, tell me, and I'll change the structure.
Well, I hope we're not voting tonight.
Well, we've used enough time on it, so I think that we will, I think what you're referring to is the employee council structure, correct? Am I understanding you right, Katie? You hope we're not in voting on how it
No.
will be? So we'll hold off on that.
Wasn't looking for a vote, I was just looking for more direction.
Yep, that's okay. We will, we've covered those 3. Did you have anything else from?
No, just in enrollment, we're down 3 kids. We're still up from last year at this time, so.
And then on to the financial reports. Is there anything that, Dave, we should be aware of?
Standard reports.
So then we'll go on to the school board member reports. The Bridging Somerset, it sounded like you were looking for someone that might be interested in that.
Correct. Yeah, and you don't have to decide that now. We're probably not gonna get a meeting with Kim Dunley tomorrow to go over the Rivers and Roads list of people that, there's quite a few people that wanna be involved in this next go around, and we're trying to keep it more community-based rather than elected official-based, but we want an elected official from each
entity.
around the area, the village, the township, and Star Prairie Township, to at least be participate in it.
Well, I'm glad we still have the interest. That's all good. That's really good. All right, mine is the CISA. I finally brought my notes tonight, but I can see as I'm glancing through them, it's not a lot of them we feel directly or that I take the feedback back. It's more you're hearing the things. But I must say this. Jerry is our director up there, and I do really appreciate and value, and you worked on when
I
he
hired him.
started that. He has
On the firing committee.
he has a wonderful sense of humor, but he also has, he comes with experience as a superintendent. He has a way of encouraging people to come with ideas in a positive, constructive way. He had to address when Act 10 went into play too, bringing it as far as reducing, not Act 10 necessarily for him, but bringing the finances of CISA 11 back in order. And now CISA 11 is used as an example and also as a fiscal manager for many other CISAs in the state. So we have things we could learn from their example, but I think mostly I respect he does his homework, but indirectly, he's instilling in others the desire to want to do their best too. And I see that Dr. Bezek has that gift too, in being able to encourage people to participate and get involvement, and I appreciate that. Jerry does it by having people think of ideas and ways, how can they better serve? And maybe that's a perspective I'd like to see us start to bring to the table here. How can we better serve in a really positive way? Because it's easy to see the faults, but if we can come back instead with, well, how about if we make it work this way, or how could it work this way? I think we'd be setting a good example, and we could be accomplishing so much more. They work with RIM as we do VM software, which has sometimes been a bottleneck for different places. Covered their different series coming up, the WOW series. They host many things that we as a district participate in, which I think is really beneficial. They review their policies much like we do as a board. We sit down as a CISA board. We review the policies on occasion. The one that they just went through was the conflict of interest, and I did ask Trevor, to please review that for us too, because there's a little bit more to it than the obvious, we cannot make financial gain. There's some language in there that I do hope we can readdress. That was the CISA. There's a lot more to it, but that was the gist of it. We go through annual trainings just to say, if they are audited, we need to be able to express why is CISA in place. So there's good learning there too. Community education, Catherine?
I do. I'm gonna kind of just read to you what Renee told me. She said current classes are out on the web and Facebook. There's very little participation. Adult volleyball seems to be going, but not much else. And I asked her why she thought that was true. And she said that she attended a community ed meeting last Wednesday for a lot of other directors in the area at Chippewa Falls. And she said that it's really typical that a lot of smaller school districts like ours that are just trying to get theirs going are having a lot of trouble right now. The bigger, more established ones that have been around for a while are maintaining.
Thanks, you guys.
But she said smaller districts are struggling to find instructors, because we just don't have that draw of that many people. And so she said she had a conversation with Lynn Fitch from WITC, and they have what's called a Blue Jeans series, and people can take a yoga class, a cooking class, but they're all online and they're all from your home. You can still wear your blue jeans. Get it? So it could be like you could be in your pajamas and you're still. So they have this whole set of community ed classes, but they're all online. So I said, and so she's gonna be looking into that further. Like maybe we can co-op with somebody who's already got one of these online things going. And then I said back that there's also a couple other things like Schoolology and Teachable. There's all these where you can develop your own online classes for people. And then she came back with, yep, however, that does take a lot of time, money, and effort to develop your own. So she's gonna go out and start looking for some that are already available, like WITC or something like that we can hook into. Because I want us to, when you said, think about ideas. So I said back to her, let's think outside the box. And maybe old-fashioned community ed classes, maybe we aren't gonna have that many. Maybe we have to start thinking about
What would have you?
what meet a need, what do our people need?
Yep.
So that was kind of, so she's gonna work on that.
That does sound interesting.
Cause there are a lot of really cool online modules. I happen to be writing one myself on restorative practices, and so I know that school districts can purchase Schoolology, and then you can do your own modules on whatever you want. So if we ever started using that in our Schoolology, because I don't know why then she couldn't tap in with the community ed if we're already paying for it.
Especially if they're
I didn't know we had
classes.
Schoolology. You
With
sure?
the business ed.
It's brand new. I have, I'll check with Trish.
Are there business classes that some in the community might want to take?
Yes.
Or
Yes.
even art classes like,
Yes.
or even music, for
Yep,
that matter.
there's a lot of
So,
that kind of stuff, yep.
All right, thank you, Catherine. Katie, did you want to add anything more to your employee council earlier comments? How about you, Lori, with the Memorial Scholarship?
Group of us are meeting tomorrow to update the application. The application will be open to students on January 13th. The applications will be due on March 4th. I think I talked last month about Senior Memory Night being May 6th, and that the scholarship presentations will be at the beginning of that from 6 until 7. And that's it right now.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey Marie, Jerry Walters is coming tomorrow to the district.
Is he?
Yeah, he's coming for about an hour and a half, meeting with all the administration.
Oh, great.
Yeah, he's making visits around the,
He did say he was doing that,
yeah,
making the
yeah,
rounds.
tomorrow's our day.
He really wants to, he does a great job of seeking out what they can provide. And Amazon, in reference to what you were saying too, they work at it backwards. I was reading an article on it yesterday and today. I leave it open and then I come back to it. You work at it backwards. What's the need that needs to be filled? How can we fill it? So, we're at the point in the meeting where if there was anyone that wanted to share anything, you'd be filling out one of those red cards. And then we would be calling on you. Is there anybody this evening? Did any of the three of you? Did either of you? Dave, did you have any? All right, thanks for joining us. We're gonna skip right over that then, because I have a little ditty I'd be reading off if we did. We'll move right into 4 on the agenda, the Advanced Services and Operations. Maybe you get to present here. Nothing on our district safety plan and assessment?
You should have it.
Okay, so did anyone have any questions?
I already emailed.
Yep, thanks Lori for sending those out, and thanks for your response to those. All right, so then we're gonna scoot right to 4B.
Well, do you have, sorry, speak in another rule.
Sure.
Do you have the form that you have to sign? We have to have it, it was on the back of the email. I just need you to sign it so that we can upload that to the DOJ. It's
So-
report.
Do we have a hard copy of it? We can get one.
I can get one.
That sounds good.
Was I on that email?
You will be.
That works, this works. Good thing you're right there telling us, this is what I need.
Right. Thanks.
All right, so then, on to 4B, 1, 2, and 3. We're back to you, Dave, with what,
Wonder what it is.
as everyone is, I know you haven't had a lot of time to think about what David suggested there, and that's specifically in reference to 4B3, correct, Dave?
Yeah. And I don't necessarily have a recommendation for that one. That was just information, based on Mark requested. See what that looks like.
He's saying it's up to us.
Yeah, it's really, it's, what do you wanna, horse piece?
What you thinking, Bruce?
Do you wanna go in order, or?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
So for the first, first we adopt the budget, then we certify the Fund 10 levy, and then if you want to do something with the Fund 39 levy, which is the defeasance, that's what you would do.
Okay.
So the Fund 10 original budget, adopting that budget, I put it next to what we looked at in June, just so you can see that comparison. It's pretty close. And you can see projecting again, a small surplus, for our purposes, this kind of margin of error there. So this includes all compensation, everything we've talked about to date, and also includes all information from the Friday count, attendance.
Which number does?
The budget
proposed?
document, the proposed budget looks like this.
Okay, yep.
And the top, so the total Fund 10 original budget, $18,994,767.
So do I have someone,
I will move to adopt, is that what we're saying? Adopt the 2019-2020 Fund 10 budget as presented. Do I need to give the dollar amount?
yeah, let's give the dollar amount.
19 million.
18 million, the
Oh,
next
sorry,
column over.
yep, 18,994,776 dollars.
767,
Another million.
767, what did I say?
you said 76, 776.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Should I repeat that? 18,994,767.
Got it.
Thank you, Katie. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Lori. So we have a motion and a second on the table for I'm not understanding the difference between the adopt and certify. Dave?
So we adopt our Fund 10 budget, and then, once that's adopted, then we can certify the levy, which is a portion of the revenue for the Fund 10
Okay,
operating budget.
so the budget she's proposing is the 18,994, correct?
18,994,767.
Yep.
And Lori, I know you typically ask, does this represent a full levy, and it does.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second on the table for a budget of 18,994,767 made by Katie, seconded by Lori. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So then now let's certify the Fund 10, oh, tax levy. I didn't read all the way to the end of that, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So this is the portion of the levy, and I just provided you the second page of our big DPI revenue limit calculation. Just so you could see that the total levy is comprised of 3 different amounts, but we certify the Fund 10 portion. And that is a large component of the revenue that you saw on the original budget document, under 200 revenue from local sources. A big part of that number comes from this levy. And this represents levying to the fullest extent permitted under the revenue limit formula.
So if I'm reading yours correctly, the 6,900,000, is that the correct?
Yes, 6920260.
Yes. Okay, do I have someone with?
I will move that we certify the Fund 10 tax levy at $6,920,260.
And do I have a second for that?
I'll second.
Thank you, Katie, thank you, Lori. So we have a motion and a second on the table to certify the Fund 10 tax levy. This is the side that is not the actual loan payment portion, correct? Right?
This is operations.
Operating.
Right, because the loan payment has already been approved on that, but we'll be levying for that as well. So we have, any questions on that? We have a motion on the table and a second made by Katie, seconded by Lori for certifying the Fund 10 tax levy in the amount of $6,920,260. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously, thank you. Then we are on to item 4B3. Now this is where we can increase, because we ended up with a more favorable financial picture, which is happening across the board. It happened in St. Joe as well. We're getting a much more favorable rate for road construction. People should and hopefully are doing their projects right now because interest rates are very good. And with the appreciation in properties, it puts us in a very favorable position to actually do some defeasance if we would want to at this point. Do I have, Lori, at one time you were wanting to make a motion. I don't mean to say that you have to, but if there's someone interested in making a motion for the Fund 39 tax levy?
I'll make a motion that we adopt the 1920 total required levy and mill rate as presented originally in number 1.
I'll second it.
So that amount, can you tell me which amount you're wanting?
$8,813,074.
$8,813,074. So we have a motion. May I have a second? Catherine seconded. I'm sorry, Catherine, I heard that. I wasn't thinking. So we have a motion on the table and a second for the Fund 39, tax levy, made by Lori, seconded by Catherine, in the amount of $8,813,074. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion also carries. Thank you very much. So, Dave, you have things you need from us signed on that then this evening? No?
Nope.
All right. So then, it was moved by Lori and seconded by Catherine. Sorry, still taking notes here. Then we will move on to item 4C. I'm looking for a motion to recommend the school board approve the handbook recommendations as presented.
This is a first reading.
Yeah, so we really don't want a motion this evening.
No.
And I have lots of questions, and there were a lot of items on there.
Can I clarify, just if my language on the agenda wasn't clear. It's not that this is the first reading of the handbook, we want the approval of the items to be included in an upcoming first reading of a handbook.
Okay.
Because we don't want to go through and reformat everything
Right,
with things that you all are not
in agreement with.
loving being in there.
Right.
So if that
Okay.
wasn't clear, I apologize, but I just wanted to make sure that.
Thanks for clarifying
Yeah.
that. So if you have a list of questions, Lori, would you be comfortable in sending
Well,
those
I think,
out?
yeah,
to
to
us?
everybody, because I think it's things that we need to have board discussion on, so I think
Right.
it needs to take place at
At a work
a
session,
meeting, yeah.
But send them to us ahead of time.
so that we can think about them beforehand.
Can I
we have
make a
double check.
couple of, comments though, that I thought, things that I thought were okay?
Do you wanna send
Maybe.
those in an email too? Cause
We
that way,
can talk about a few of them now, if you'd like.
I'd rather do it at a work session
Me too.
myself and have time to
And
think
have
about
time
it,
to
and I'd
hear.
love to hear your thoughts, so if you don't mind writing them out.
Well, I just think these are all things that,
If they're easy ones that we can just get off the
I
sheet.
know, they're just like
How many?
language. There's like, the cash and supervisor support staff, that's just the language.
Yeah.
That we're using on everybody's, that's already happening. I mean, that's just a quick language change.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you're saying take care of some of these right now?
Yeah.
I have to find the right document though, because it's not the one that's linked to the agenda that has the recommendations on it.
And how about posting positions on weekend?
Uh-huh.
I mean,
That's being done.
Yeah.
But again,
Okay.
these were things that came up that,
So will you be giving this to Tage, so she's got that afterwards? Do you want that afterwards for notes where it was okay?
well, again, you gotta know if everyone thinks they're
Yeah.
okay.
But that'd be at the work session after, I mean, as she talks about them now,
Okay,
so that
well,
there's
is
a
that,
hard copy, or do I need to
is
keep
that how you
taking
wanna do
notes?
it, is you wanna take everyone's input in writing? And, I mean, if everyone wants to submit what they think of these things, I mean, we can come up with a scenario to get it out to you, so you know how everyone else is thinking.
I don't think that's kosher. That should be at a work
Right.
session. But putting the options or the questions out there so that we know ahead of time which items we're gonna be
It
talking
would
about.
help us too if
Yeah.
there's questions that we haven't heard yet
Yes.
before, cause, you know, like the one about the 12-month piece with the support staff, and, you know, I just reiterate that we would be the only ones in the MBC that do it. Whatever you wanna do, we'll do, but no one else pays 9-month people or part-time people over 12 months.
And see,
some
I
of
would like
those
to know
things-
your thinking on those.
Well, and
It's-
that's why the recommendation is on there.
Administrative
So,
recommendations are, but it's
But-
not attached to the
Right.
agenda.
Right, and
okay, so I just thought I could get rid of a few of them.
I'd like to
Yeah,
get
I
rid of a
appreciate
few of them
that.
too, but again,
That's
I
fine.
guess we gotta
We'll do
have
it
some
at a
type
work
of order,
session.
some type of order to them, so.
But we're gonna have to, allot some time for discussion.
Well, if that's why, if you don't mind sending them out ahead of time, what your concerns are, then you get no feedback from any of us, but it gives us time to think about it ahead of time and may be more efficient at the meeting. Same with yours, Katie? Do you
Just
mind doing
mine?
that? Yep.
No,
No, you don't mind?
no,
Send
you
out-
will not get them in advance.
Oh,
We can
okay,
talk about them at the
all
work
right.
session.
Do you mind, Lori, sending, you said you had quite a few.
Well, I just thought that we should discuss each of these,
Yeah.
you know. Not that I have questions on all of them, but I think that we should discuss them. Don't you think we should discuss them?
I do, if it's, you know, I appreciate what you were saying about if it's just something that's already standard language.
Mhm.
Am I understanding you right?
Mhm.
So is that what yours were too?
So if I understand right, we're just approving them tonight to basically discuss them next
At the
work
next
session.
work session?
Our thought was that we could get the ones that you are,
The easy ones,
yep, so that we can add them to the handbook for the first reading. Because with the revamp of the handbook, all of the things that have had to change in there, just by the restructure of it, we didn't wanna go and add in a bunch of language that would then be taken back out, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So that's why we went with this format, in hopes of getting, yes, add this one to the handbook for the first reading, yes, add this one. But you're not necessarily fully approving what they are at this point. It would be, we wanna see them in the handbook for the first reading,
Can we just take the whole thing then to the work session?
the whole document.
So what you
No
were
reason why you
hoping
can't.
was
It's
that
not
we
have to
could
allow time
read
to
through
do it.
this, the little sheet that you have here, and say yay or nay to those? Is that what you were hoping for from tonight?
Right.
Okay,
So that items could be added or not into the handbook, which could then come to you guys for a first reading. I don't have any
what's your,
thoughts about when this needs to happen, but if you want to bring this to the work session for discussion, and then possibly by the December work session, we could have the handbook ready for a first reading. I don't, Jody, chime in where you,
Well, we're not
feel
in
that-
any, we're not under any gun to get this done.
No.
It's just, I wanna get it done. We've been waiting for the compensation model before we put the rest of this to bed. And so, but you need to have conversation on these items.
Yeah.
Because these are the ones that came, these are the ones that came from the employee council and the other groups that we met with. So let's just just make time at the next work session to go through these. It shouldn't take all that long, but we need to dedicate some time to it.
yeah, and it's
So-
helpful to me to know ahead of time, you know, Lori, what your questions are, what your thought process is, because you have a different perspective on it than I would have.
Well,
So-
we can
We can talk about
discuss
it.
it at the work session.
Okay,
I would say if you're reading through anything and are like, I don't understand this, or could you provide us more input? So you could have a better discussion. I just put really quick notes by each thing. Feel free to send me an email and I can, have that information sent out to you ahead of time. So if you're like, I wanna see the FMLA flow chart, I can send that out. But I didn't inundate you with a lot of information either. So feel free to ask those questions so I could get it to you ahead of time.
So based on this document, because one of these squares isn't filled in under supervisory support staff, the request was for all sick days to be given up front. And what the current practice is not there. So with supervisory support staff, do they get one per month?
They're accumulated one per month. I'm sorry, yes,
Okay,
accumulated one per month.
thank you.
so what's the preference, excuse me?
Move it to the work session
Yep, all right, and the majority of you feel that way?
and leave some time for discussion.
All right, so then,
If you have any, if you need more information, just like Jody says, if you need more information, please get it to us so we can put it on a document and send it out to all of you.
I think we have now till the next work session to kinda
Just,
Come
and
up
if you
with
got questions, just give
but
them.
I got a couple questions right now, just two. Lori, you had said this is not the handbook currently, and the example you just gave was saying that under supervisory support staff, but it is not actually the current practice that's on here, so I'm not understanding what this gridded actually is.
Well, and I think Dave explained this last time, that there's pieces of the handbook that have changed because of law.
Yep.
That we've had to put in there, and from what I understand in the past, the handbook wasn't like every so often, or
Every year it was updated.
but there's practices that were put in that had to be in there to either meet law, or,
Right.
like our health, that 80% on the
Mhm.
cash in lieu, things like that. It didn't make it in time for the revision or what have you, but
Has to be, it has to be done, yeah.
So there's things like that. And again, what's on these sheets are the things that came up for question, from the employee council. And we can expand on some of these if we know the questions. So again, if you need more information about that, just get it to us and we'll prep another sheet for the work session. Or before the work session.
So Marie, just to clarify, like the first column where it's proposed language, that's what the group is asking for.
Okay,
The current practice, or what's in the handbook, is what's being done or in print right now. So like the one where Lori was just asking,
right,
currently, they accumulate 1 sick day per month. The group had said at the beginning of the year, meaning like their contract for, current is what is there.
And the
It's
first,
9 though, isn't it?
Well, for support staff, it's 9, because they're 9-month employees. For supervisory support staff, it's 12, because they're 12 months, so there's 2 different groups there.
Right. I was talking about the support staff.
Yep, so, yeah.
but
so-
there's nothing in the current box. and
I
so
know, I
that's-
didn't type it in there, I apologize.
No,
I
no,
can
no, that's
update that-
okay.
I
I
can
just-
update that one and I put accumulate 1 per month up to 12.
I just wanted to clarify in my
Yes.
head, what are we actually looking at here?
Yeah,
After Lori's
so-
question.
Yeah.
So
And
the
there's nothing in
proposed
the-
language was actually from the employee groups,
Correct.
not
The
from
proposed,
administration. Okay.
except for when you get to the section that says
The business office.
the business
different.
office. Because
Okay.
those are the things that need to be added or cleaned up that are current practice or need to be addressed for tax issues, implications, that we, if you guys say, yes, go ahead, let's put something in there to clean up the sick day bank process, then we'll get some language added. If you're gonna say, nope, we're doing away with sick bank, blah, 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 we're staying with the same language, we don't worry about IRS implications, well, then we're not gonna write language. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
You're just asking for that.
Thank you
So,
very much for that clarification. And that's where some of yours would have been, you're saying very quick.
Yep.
Okay. So we'll put this to the work session, first one in November. We've got a couple other things we're gonna have to put on there too as well. But that's good, great, we're gonna move that. So then we're on to 4D, educator effectiveness and longevity. Looking for anyone in favor of that motion, making that motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Katie. So we have a motion on the table and a second made by Catherine, seconded by Katie, to approve, the school board approve administration's recommendation to award a one-time, non-base building stipend to 8 teachers that reached an Educator Effectiveness 4, EE4 distinguished rating and a one-time longevity increase for 1 employee for the 2019-2020 school year. Okay, I have one question on that wording in there. A one-time longevity increase, so is that a one-time non-base building increase? Is that a one-time stipend? What is that in the last line there?
Right now, that, the one person that's off the schedule would get, like in the past, a stipend for that.
So I would want that more clearly stated in that motion there, if that is okay with you and you as a one.
And then they would be able to earn that extra stipend every year.
If we
Because
voted
it's-
on it.
Well, that depends on how you want, the whole thing of longevity has to be discussed. We're trying to get this year, because we only have one person. Now, the one caveat with this whole piece is that 800 stipend that the people were getting there, that's all base building now.
I know, I
So
saw.
that, you know, it's, but next year and following years, you're gonna have more people at that, so sometime in the next few months, you have to have this discussion, if you wanna have it, on what to do with longevity, if you so decide to.
Victoria's recommendation, if I remember from her presentation accurately, was that a CPI cost of living needed to be added to every cell every year.
And that's another piece
If
that,
I understood her correctly, it could be added, not need to be
No,
added.
she said should. She would've said should, because that's,
you know,
because it's true, if the cost of living increases.
And
we
she
need your
said if
workers
you
to be able to
don't,
keep up.
your compensation model will soon be outdated.
Correct.
and that's what
And
happened.
then it gets
You should
expensive.
at least every 2 or 3 years.
That's what I heard her
At
say.
least, at the very minimum, but
no,
you
no,
guys
no,
haven't done that,
Every 2 to 3
you haven't done that
years.
for a long time.
Right.
I'll
No,
find the
Marie.
place in the video and send it to you.
Marie, absolutely, she encourages everybody to keep up with that CPI and then look at the overall
Grid.
wage grid every 3 years.
And
3 to 4
traditionally,
years.
you've done that. Traditionally, you've at least given CPI, even through the
Yeah.
Act 10 years. And then you went to the 1,600, 1,000 grid piece there, so you've always done that.
I'm confused why this one teacher is not getting an increase, because I thought the whole grid
did.
increased.
You did.
No, it's because he had already been at a salary higher than the grid.
Than
because
our
of-
current grid too.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the only one. And so we looked at, if you look on the right-hand side of the grid, or what some of the increases were at the top people, that's what we thought, you know what, give that for this year until we figure out what.
Whatever we do, it has to be the practice going forward, you know, for others who may find themselves in the position.
And it's gonna happen.
That's why in this motion, I would like it to read more clearly for my benefit, maybe, a one-time longevity stipend for one employee rather than increase.
Are you willing to make that amendment? You made the motion, didn't you?
No, I think you did.
Oh, did I? I thought I seconded it.
You made the
I
motion and
didn't.
Katie seconded.
I
Oh.
didn't do anything.
I'm willing to make that.
Because I
Are
think
you
it's
okay with
Yes.
that?
redundant.
So
And I'll
you're
amend
okay
that.
with the
Yep.
second? Okay, thank you both very much. So we have a motion on the table, recommend the school board approve administration's recommendation to award a one-time non-base building stipend to 8 teachers that reached an EE4 distinguished rating and a one-time longevity stipend for one employee for the 2019-2020 school year. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? So
And-
I did not hear yours. Did you say aye?
But you voted before we could,
Have a discussion.
my discussion.
I'm sorry.
Because I had a question
Okay,
about,
I apologize.
because I did email Mark about this, and I was trying to find the compensation grid that Victoria had, that we'd gotten out from Victoria. Because as a board, we've been given lots of information, and then later we find out it's not being implemented that way. For example, we were told that the teachers were gonna be put on this McGrath grid based on what their salary was supposed to be for 1920. And that didn't happen. So I wanna make sure that I'm understanding the one-time stipend accurately. And so that's why I'm looking for the McGrath grid. So let's say you have a teacher who is on the grid at 51, and next year they'd be going to 52, but we give them an extra 1,000 this year for that stipend, so then next year, do they go to the 52?
No, it's a one-time non-base building stipend.
So they get some extra money this year.
For doing the work, so here's the.
So they're gonna get some extra money this year.
Correct,
And then next year,
they
what's-
don't get it
and they just go to the next step on the grid.
wherever they're placed. This will be a separate stipend, they'll go to where they're,
They'll go to the next step on the grid.
from wherever they were this year minus that stipend, because the stipend's separate,
Okay,
they'll move to the next grid, they'll
Alright.
move
Will
to the
not
next step.
count toward their
Okay.
salary.
Pardon?
thank you.
It won't
It's
count
not base building.
toward their
Right,
salary.
it's not base building. And the rationale there is because this group is getting a second bite at the apple that other people won't be eligible for. They did the work, but, you know, we ended it last year. But we didn't end it, we thought, we either do nothing or we err on the side and say, you know what, you did the work. We're not gonna continue the practice anymore. And that's why we thought, you know, a stipend rather than, because EE before was base building.
And in the recommendation, I don't see anything here about what's the dollar amount of the stipend.
Well, it's $1,000.
Okay,
If you don't put 1,000, I mean, it's always been $1,000, so I'm sorry it's not in there.
okay.
It was $1,000.
So do you want to add that to your motion, $1,000 stipend?
Right now, it just says a stipend, doesn't say what it is.
Okay. I don't think that fits with this. I mean, no,
Everybody heard we're giving them $1,000. I don't think we have to change the motion. It's on video.
All right, so now I did, Lori,
Good luck finding it.
are you in
Correct.
favor of, do any of you change your votes? Lori, I did not hear yours, so I heard.
Yes,
all
I
in
agree.
favor. Okay,
Yes,
so
I
the
vote
motion
in favor.
carries all in favor unanimously, right? You said yes, you were in support of it, I thought I heard you say. Or did I miss
I just
something?
wanna make sure that there is, in writing, what we're doing. And I know you've been working on that, Jody, for these various scenarios, so that when they come up again, there won't be, what did we do before?
She's been doing an
Yeah.
exceptional job.
And so I would encourage in this situation where we're giving out the stipend and the dollar amount, that be part of that as well.
And I will communicate to, there are 8 people with that EE4 rating that are 1,000, that it'll be a separate stipend check. It's not going to be divided amongst their 24 payments for the year. So next year, their base wage is not going to look
Different.
Perfect.
because otherwise next year it's gonna look like they're making less, and
Right.
that's not what
Right.
they're going to be doing. So that,
Right.
on the November 5th payroll, they'll get that $1,000 stipend
Okay,
check.
perfect.
And then their wage will be their wage.
That's wonderful, thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, I just wanted
It
to
will be
clarify that.
communicated to them
No
as
one
this
came
1
to,
year.
no one came to us with this, we just thought it's the right thing to do.
Yeah,
All right,
okay, now, all in favor?
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, so on to 4E. I'm looking for a motion to approve the updates to policy 5341.
So moved.
Thank you, Lori. Any second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Bruce.
I have a question about the policy.
Okay.
I asked when it was presented at the work session, whether we need a parent signature original copy on file. And Emily said she was going to check into that. But as far as I know, the board hasn't received an answer.
I thought she was gonna check that because they were accepting them for some other form via electronic. But I don't know that she,
I haven't heard anything directly from her.
So that's my only concern with the policy.
I will say from a parent standpoint, when I fill out my child's online registration annual update every year, where I can update emergency contact information or medications, health history, any of that, at the end of it, I acknowledge with the electronic signature. And that's same for people enrolling their children, so I don't know if that plays into
How they can do it.
how they
for
can do it.
this.
I imagine that if our registration system allows that, that it would fall into place in the policy too. But again, so I am as a parent signing off on it electronically.
But did you have an original that you signed?
Not
first?
since we implemented the online registration.
Which is awesome.
Not since, but you had one original.
But what, at the end, when I submit the registration, it says, check this box in it, you are acknowledging that this is your electronic signature to certify, or I don't know what the exact language is, but to approve all of this that I've entered in there.
Okay,
So again, I don't know if that
It'll be good.
specifically helps, but.
I hope so.
All right,
so your concern would be, I'm not sure.
Is there a legal requirement that we have a parent signature, an original on file, on a piece of paper in order to give? I know in the past that if a kid hadn't turned in their emergency card, the healthcare office could not give them Tylenol or
Right.
ibuprofen or, and do we need to have that signature hard copy?
From
I-
what I've seen in forms that I know I've signed for anything I file, or that they can, you have to, like she said, there's an extra checkbox.
Yep, so that's something that I approve in my online registration.
I haven't
Tylenol,
heard from her, so
ibuprofen.
but I thought I heard her say that we didn't need a hard copy anymore.
She said she was gonna check.
Okay, I haven't, no, then she hasn't told me.
So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're gonna let that go, but just double check with
I'll-
Emily.
Yeah.
All right, so we're on to 5,
Oh,
educational delivery, college credits. Do you wanna,
I'll move.
great. Katie's gonna first
That we
that.
approve.
Recommend the school board approve the spring 2020 early college credits, start college now courses as presented. So those of you who wanted to see them, are they already linked? I'm sorry, should have looked.
Yeah, they're,
So you don't need to see this, so you've already seen it, yes. All right, second for that?
I'll second.
Thank you. So we have a motion, a second, any questions on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Great, any opposed? Motion carries, thank you. Looking for,
I move to approve consent agenda 6 items A through F as presented.
thank you.
Second.
Thank you, guys, wonderful. Any questions, any concerns?
Well, I'm just glad that we are implementing procedures so that we don't have late charges in the future.
He was not happy about that. We
So
have-
that's been taken care of. Thank you.
All right, all those in favor, motion made to approve the consent agenda by Katie, seconded by Catherine. Implemented procedures to avoid late charges, is that what you said?
Yep.
I'm just, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Our upcoming meetings are, item 7, November 4th and 18th. We do need to fit in there. Dr. Bezick shared with me his goals and the progress he's made so far. We would benefit. He would too probably like to hear it. Where we're at with that, I'd like to suggest that before the 4th meeting or at the 4th meeting, we have a session, closed session portion that we had discussed his goals with him. And then also, we as a board, Tasia had shared with me, they've changed how people can get the survey once again. So you don't have to have your individual sign in. Would we as a board want to evaluate our workings as a board? Because nobody took that survey last time except for me, that I am aware of. So that to me made me think, okay, maybe that's not the best tool.
I think we did.
I think
So that we didn't just get the results, and that was what happened?
I don't know,
I
but
never
took
got
it.
it.
So maybe that's why they tell now everybody gets one. I will check, we'll follow up on that.
I think
So-
it is important that, yes, we do that.
Okay,
However, I don't know that we want to do 2 things like that in the same
month.
night.
Yes.
okay, so we'll do his in November and ours in December?
Can
Is
you
that
do
okay?
that second meeting, because unless you want to do it afterwards, because we have the construction meeting before the November 4th meeting.
Okay, what's your preference?
Whatever.
We are not gonna make it a lengthy thing.
Well, you have all the information,
Yep,
if you want to
I'm-
share it ahead of time, whatever.
I
Yeah,
would like
share
to,
it all
I
ahead of
would
time.
like to, as long as you guys are okay with that, I would like to be able to do that. So then we'll do the construction update and do his after that, or do you wanna do it before or after the,
Are we all at that construction update?
No,
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 that's
but
what it's at.
that's the work session, we're gonna put the stuff on, you know, we could have a lot of discussion in it.
Yeah.
Whatever you wanna do, but it could be a long night for,
I don't like the sounds of that.
I don't care.
So, are you guys comfortable with doing it prior to the meeting on the 18th?
I won't be there.
On the 18th?
Nope.
So,
Doing what?
I have hockey.
his annual,
Oh, it's none of your business, but it's okay.
Let's just do it after the 4th then, okay? Let's just do it after the 4th.
After the 4th?
Because it's only, you know,
His
Bruce and
goal.
Bob are at the early meeting.
and it doesn't have to be a lengthy thing, especially if I mail it out ahead of time.
And if I have comments, I can send them in email.
We'll do it the 4th on the after
Go
the
ahead.
session.
Oh, you'll be here on the 4th.
Yeah.
After, yeah, I'm not gonna do any before, so I
No,
can't
we'll do
any
it
before.
after. We'll do it after. So, once around the table, anything else? Catherine?
I had,
Lori?
Oh, no, thank you.
Bruce? Katie?
I want to clarify that I sent an email out after our last meeting addressing a concern about the language that Lori had used in a motion that incorrectly identified a position that we approved for reclassification. And I asked that this be repaired by the board, and, Marie,
I
we
didn't
need to
read it.
take care of that.
I did not read it that you wanted it repaired. I read it as
Yes.
a comment that you were making. So if you want to follow the process,
No.
then we would be,
What
have to
position
bring
was
that
it?
motion back to the.
Oh,
Tony's
no wonder you know about it, okay.
No,
No.
Oh, I couldn't remember what it was.
She's just talking about the wording. I
but it was,
used-
it's important, I
Yeah,
think.
oh, yeah, it's the
Because
wrong
they,
title.
she,
I
in her
used-
motion, she
So
used a different job
If
title.
Keisha, would you please bring back that motion to reconsider that motion at our next meeting?
I remember.
And since we only have meeting minutes to go through as our, really,
No, I remember.
I just wanna make sure that gets done.
I used the category that
Right.
was on the left rather than the name of the specific
Job title.
And
job
your
title.
suggestion in the email, I didn't recognize that you were saying, I want us to, there's a term
Yeah.
for it.
No, I remember.
I said, I think you guys should fix this.
I didn't read it that way, I just read that you wanted that happening, but you didn't say to me, okay, we need to reconsider that motion. That was, I guess, what I would have, I didn't know that. My apologies. So, thank you, Tasha. Does that make sense?
Yep.
All right, anything else, Katie?
No.
Okay, and you already heard mine, I apologize, I kind of started Dr. Bezik's review after our meeting on the fourth, and hours after our meeting, or before our meeting on, after our meeting on the first week in December. Oh, I will not be here that first meeting in December. I'm sorry.
I'll have to look and see if I can't imagine it going, but you never know. Or you guys better promise to be nice.
Is that right? I gotta look at the date on
Call
that.
from Arizona.
I'm not feeling
Right.
nice right now, what are you talking about?
That's why we want
We
you
are
to
getting
chew
a
some
new
gum or
setup
something.
Yeah.
Not go smoke.
December.
No.
Cigarette.
That's terrible for
Second,
you.
December 2nd is when you will be gone?
Yes.
Well, unfortunately, I'll be here.
And I will be here the next Monday if you guys wanted to push it back, but I don't wanna be the one to change it on anybody, cause it's the work session, no, you're gonna have the
Nobody
updates
should be
for the-
screwing around with anything in December.
Yeah.
I
No,
agree,
that is
I
just-
agree. So my apologies ahead of time. I can call in, I just would not be here. So, are we gonna have it set up so that we can do,
We
Is that a work
are
session?
getting a new
It is a
piece
work
of
Oh, that's better.
technology.
That's better.
We're getting a new
What's-
piece of conference center piece.
but Zoom would also make it really easy. You don't need any new stuff, you just have that. Should we look into that?
We have a Zoom account.
Then we could do it. It's very easy to facilitate, I'm able to participate in the CISA one that way, so might be a good way for us to try it. And actually, because then Tim did it from Osceola, and he was our president there too, so that would take you off the hook. So if she doesn't get it going, you do it.
Okay, well, it might be a good try, give it a
Yeah,
try.
we can at least try it on that one. You let me know how I can help you do that.
That's fine.
What, oh, there we go.
All right, so looking
Right, it was
for a motion to adjourn.
Oh, I thought we were.
No.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Katie, thank you, Catherine. We are adjourned at are all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, we are adjourned at 8:16.
Okay. I'm
Were you
sorry.
waiting